U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and his counterpart Russia's Sergei Lavrov are holding talks in Stockholm. The meeting comes as a Russian troop buildup along the border with Ukraine fuels tensions between Moscow and the West. Blinken has warned that with the right pretext, the Kremlin could order an invasion of Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin is demanding legal guarantees from NATO that the alliance will never expand eastward.
Moscow says that this is simply a military drill. But for Ukraine, these images released by Russia's defense ministry indicate a threatening buildup of forces on its border. Ukraine's president has called on NATO for help, asking members to prepare sanctions and military action to deter Russia.
We must confess that without our troops, we will not be able to stop the war. We must tell the truth that we will not be able to stop the war without direct negotiations with Russia.
At the meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Latvia, the reaction was quick and firm.
Ministers made clear any future Russian aggression would come at a high price and have serious political and economic consequences for Russia.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the U.S. has seen evidence that Russia may be planning to invade Ukraine.
Thank you. We're deeply concerned by evidence that Russia has made plans for significant aggressive moves against Ukraine. The plans include efforts to destabilize Ukraine from within, as well as large-scale military operations.
Vladimir Putin.
Speaking at a Kremlin ceremony, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that what he wants from negotiations with NATO are guarantees.
In dialogue with the US and its allies, we will insist on developing concrete arrangements that would exclude any further NATO expansion to the east and the deployment of weapons that threaten us in direct proximity to Russia's territory. We propose starting substantive talks on this matter.
This all sets the stage for a tense meeting between Blinken and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Stockholm.
Jake Cordell is in Moscow for us. Jake, what is Russia expecting from these talks?
It's expecting, as always, when senior officials from Russia and the US get together to have a very frank discussion, a tense discussion. From Russia's point of view, we've heard what the US is going to bring to the talks. It's going to outline what it says is its unwavering commitment to Ukrainian sovereignty and lay down a marker that Russia needs to not take any further aggressive action. Russia says that it's acting defensively in response to Ukrainian posturing, and so it will be going into the talks seeking to lay out what it sees are Moscow's red lines, areas that it does not want the West and Ukraine to go forward. Otherwise, in Moscow's eyes, it will be forced to respond. First and foremost, that is a guarantee, some kind of guarantee, that NATO will not expand its presence in Ukraine either through formal membership or by the increase of military supplies to Ukraine. But really what this is about in a broader sense is Russia seeking to assert its sphere of influence and remind the West that it believes Ukraine falls within its own sphere of influence.
Diplomatic relations between the US and Russia are at a low point. Could these talks go some way to patching things up?
Yeah, these are the first high-profile talks since the Geneva summit in June between President Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden. And after that summit in Geneva, there did seem to be a period of some détente between the US and Russia. There was some cooperation and talks on areas such as Afghanistan or the Iran nuclear deal and areas like that. But the latest flare-up and this latest kind of military tensions and diplomatic tensions really shows how fragile that relationship is and that it can boil over at any point. In Moscow, they see this meeting as a precursor to what they hope will be another summit between Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin. In Moscow, the view is that it's Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden who make the decisions on this. So today's meeting will really be about laying out, putting cards on the table, putting out what needs to be discussed. And from Moscow's point of view, they hope that that discussion will then go on to the top level where some kind of solution, hopefully diplomatic, can be found.
How serious are we talking? How are things here? Are we talking? I mean, is this just posturing, or could we really see some kind of invasion?
From the US point of view, they've made it clear that they see a difference between Moscow's actions this time around compared to previous military build-ups in the past, such as the one we saw in spring. Now, they haven't publicly said why they think that, but they're making probably the loudest and most serious sounds that they think Moscow could go further. From Moscow's point of view, we've also seen some ramping up of the kind of rhetoric about the dangers posed to this. Vladimir Putin has been on TV talking about if Ukraine were to get more military support from the West, then they could have missiles based on Ukrainian territory that could hit Russia within 5 minutes. So he's presenting this as a really existential threat. And the issue here is that this threatens becoming an escalatory spiral, because as Russia responds, or as Russia puts more troops on the border with Ukraine, Ukraine then calls that as justification to increase military support from the West. And we've already seen a number of new military deals between Ukraine and Western countries struck in recent days. So that spiral does threaten to continue. But the fact that the foreign ministers are talking and that there are hopes for a presidential summit does show that both sides think there is a diplomatic exit route.
Right. Jake Cordell for us in Moscow. Thanks very much.